Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversation at Home program. I'm Nzinga Blake from ABC-owned television stations. Before we're joined by our guests today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you're a SAG-AFTRA artist and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. And now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Justin and Christian Long of Lady of the Manor. So first of all, I had an introduction. I was about to say, so charmed to meet you, gentlemen. Congratulations on your directorial debut. It really, honestly, I'm such a fan of the buddy, comedies, the classic buddy comedies. Please just tell us, what was this like for you both? Why did you want to tell this story?
Well, Nzinga, like you, we love buddy comedies as well.
Yes.
And we grew up watching a lot of them and loving them, from Laurel and Hardy to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. What About Bob? So some of these comedies are among our favorite movies. So we wanted to make one and put our spin on it. And we think we did. We're really proud of what we came up with.
Yeah, we had never really seen, of all those movies that we loved that he mentioned, and we loved just like the simple setup, the two opposed characters and having to coexist. But we had never really seen many with women, like two women in that position. And certainly in a, I don't want to say gross out way, because it's not, there are fart jokes and dick jokes and stuff like that. There's spicier humor. So we wondered how two classy actresses like Melanie Lynskey and Judy Greer would respond to a script like that. We sent it just as kind of a long shot, because we knew them, we had a personal connection, and of course we knew how funny they were, but we didn't know if they'd be squeamish about some of the stuff. And if anything, that was the stuff that they really embraced. They really leaned into and wanted to do, because Melanie is somebody that I've known that I could joke with about anything, nothing was really off limits for her. So she's, I had a feeling she might like it, but we were so relieved when she did.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I loved about it the most. And I found it fascinating. I'm like, oh gosh, here are these two guys who wrote a female buddy comedy, and directed. And I was like, from my personal background, it's like culturally, those fart jokes and dick jokes, you're just like, oh wow. But then you know what? I absolutely loved it, because I feel like it's time for us to come out of our shell.
It's so nice. I love hearing that, because we felt the same way. Like I said, I can joke with Judy and Melanie really about anything. And we tend to think of that type of humor as only for guys, and you said we wrote a female driven comedy. We didn't write it any differently than we would for men. We really just tried to write something that we thought was funny. And, and of course, women, we tried to use how far society has come and as a kind of a backdrop for the comedy. But it was, I don't think it felt any different than writing for men to us.
No, that's so beautiful.
Know so many funny women. So I think when making the decision about, should we do a buddy comedy with two men or two women, I think it was a natural move to make it women, because of all the funny women we know in our lives. And I think that was probably the main reason, right?
Yeah, and we had funny women in outside of actresses that we knew. We based it on funny women that we knew in our lives, just people in our lives, and so we wanted to be as specific with some of the characters as possible, and ground it in as real a way as possible. Even though there's a ghost and there's this whole kind of crazy plot involving the supernatural, but we still wanted it to be grounded and natural.
And what I loved about that you said, it's like you just wrote a story, and you just wrote a human story. So I love that. I wish more people could approach life that way, because it doesn't always have to be so specific, right? So most importantly, y'all are brothers. What was it like doing this film together?
Oh, it was dramatic. We were constantly
at each other's throats,
clawing at each other.
Yeah. I can't believe we made it. I can't believe we got there. People are always like amazed by that.
I know.
Like, how do you work with your brother? To me, it just feels so natural. I mean, we get along so well.
In fact, that was like the one like completely drama-free element of making it.
That's true.
I mean, there's like, you make a small movie like this and things are constantly coming up and getting in the way and stresses and problems. But the one consistent thing throughout was that like we got along and we were seeing it the same way. And so that was
my answer. You took my answer.
That was really comforting for me, you know, like that stability, knowing that like we had each other's backs.
True. Like, you know, any sort of drama could happen during the day because there are always unforeseen things, as I'm sure you talk to other people about, and, you know, things come up and it becomes catastrophic one second and then the next everyone's hugging and it's okay. But yeah, you could always kind of lean on. It was good to come back and be able to lean on one another.
But I could just tell that you all really cultivated this great environment. What was that like? Do you think it's because, Justin, you're an actor, and what is that? What is that process like?
Yeah, I was more sensitive to how to create that environment, I guess. I don't know. I think I give the credit to the actors, really.
Yeah, I think you deserve credit, though. I think you're very good at making everyone feel comfortable, and you get to know the crew, and you treat everyone. You've always done this in your career, from my perspective. So you always treat everyone equally, and you take the time to get to know everybody. So I think that creates a very comfortable experience and like potentially fun experience on set.
It felt communal.
It felt very communal, but I think in large part thanks to you, but also I think in large part thanks to the actors who are not only good actors, like really good actors, but like really nice people and like willing to not have the most comfortable, you know, like these actors are used to having like very comfortable green rooms and trailers to go to, and there's a lot of like waiting around, things that they're maybe not as used to, but they never hinted at being uncomfortable or unhappy, and so everyone was they were so like cool about everything.
That's true. And Melanie, in fact, was breastfeeding when we were shooting it, so we wanted to be and she's one of our favorite people. We just love her and her family. Her husband's the best, obviously the baby's adorable, and so we were trying to be sensitive to that, and God, it killed me when the baby would have to leave, and of course she's crying. But Melanie was so patient about that stuff, and since we're two men and I bothered to investigate this, we didn't know that when a woman breastfeeds, it depletes them of so much energy. I mean, it's obvious to me now, but at the time I was like, I had no idea. And so
the fact that she was able to do that and then give that performance, which was like she was in every scene pretty much, you know. So I don't know how she did it. I don't know how it's remarkable. Yeah, it really was.
And also to your point, Nzinga, like we tried to we were so like relieved more than anything else when we saw Melanie and Judy off camera interacting, because they didn't really know each other before, but they'd admired one another, and they were often in fact up for the same things, and so they knew of each other, but right away they started to like bond, and
they liked each other.
They just enjoyed each other's company, you know, and so when we saw that, we were like, we were so grateful that that was happening, because then we knew it would be captured in the movie.
It would translate on screen for sure, and it did, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that was like my next question, because I think again that all comes with the casting. What was the casting experience like for you, being behind the camera now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was so, I think, probably hypersensitive to the how vulnerable it is to be an actor and to be putting yourself out there, to be auditioning at all. Like we were so grateful that anybody was auditioning, and we saw a lot of local actors in the Southeast area, and so I just I think I was very sensitive to that experience, that process, and grateful that people were willing to put themselves out there for our thing. But we, I don't know. What do you think the experience with the actors? It was casting for Melanie and Judy was just a matter of like,
casting was just like these two great actresses who are so classy and have done so much like elevated high level work. Our only concern was, should we even bother asking them to do this fart comedy? Not to take anything away. We thought the script was funny, but there's something about how classy they are I just wondered if they even would want to do something like that, but turns out they did, and which we were so grateful for it, but also that they really liked the idea of doing something like different for them, which was, they really embraced the, the quote unquote edgy elements of the movie.
They did. That was the stuff
they loved it.
They wanted more of that stuff. Yeah. They were, and then some of the local actors that we found, we got so lucky with Tamara Austin.
Wallace Jean, who played Marcus. Natural.
Was such a find. Yeah, I think he's from Athens, Georgia, and he there was something a lot of people who auditioned for that part were really like, they playing the comedy, like really trying, because in their defense, it's like, and I know this as an actor, when you get a smaller part and you don't have as much to work with, like you try to make the most of what it is, and sometimes I'm sure I've done it in the past, you really like swing for the fences, you try to make a meal out of it, and it takes a lot of security and confidence to just be sincere with it and be kind of smaller. And Wallace was so natural. He was just such a great find. And so we're really happy to have found him. And again, a guy who doesn't have much experience, but was so game and was really like a pleasure to be around, to work with. It was just
we got really lucky with a lot of talented actors, but just like really nice people. And I don't know how we would have made the days. We had to shoot a lot in a very short amount of days.
Oh man.
And we relied on not only their talents but also their patience and their kindness. This was our first time doing this, so it truly was a collaborative effort.
I think about some of the actors, like good actors I've worked with, who are not like that, who are a little trickier, and we just wouldn't have had the time, and they need to go again. I want another take for this reason that doesn't really, just for their own whatever ego reasons, and there was none of that. We were lucky, very lucky. I mean, Ryan Felipe's character. He loved doing that stuff. He was like, it was great to see him in this character. Oh, good. Yeah, we agree. We loved seeing him do that.
We loved him so much in MacGruber. We thought that was such a great movie. And his performance specifically was so great because he plays the straight man. But he is so earnest and truthful in that performance that it makes all the crazy stuff that Kristen Wiig and Will Forte are doing in that movie, it makes that so much funnier because his reactions are so real and like human. So that we knew after seeing that he would be perfect in this role. That's the best example of not trying to play the comedy, that you have the patience and kind of the humility too, because Ryan's a big actor. He's been in huge movies. He's the name that people know. And it takes a lot of humility to not indulge a little bit more and to sit back and just kind of like be a reactionary character. And he really did that beautifully. So be a little bit more of a character, a little bit more of a, I mean, like you said, he's playing a real douchebag. He's a despicable character.
Yeah, a real affluenza, despicable person.
It was phenomenal. And let's talk about you, Justin, because you also are in the movie. Now, did you find yourself having to like compartmentalize and just hand the directing reins over to your brother, Christian, or did you have to still both collaborate when directing the scenes that you were in? What was that like?
I don't want to speak for you, but my take on it is those, I think all your scenes, for the most part, you had one scene with Ryan, but for the most part, it was you and Melanie in the scenes. And you knew the script so well, obviously, and like what we were both going for so specifically. And she is such a natural that with any scene, she usually needs one, maybe two takes in a scene. She like really nails it almost always the first time. So that combination of the two of you together, it really required very little adjustment. You really like both knew exactly what you were doing. And once in a while there'd be like, try it again. Maybe this was hard to hear or something, but
it also was a part that wasn't that, not to sound like it wasn't much of a stretch for me. We kind of wrote it thinking if we needed, like I ideally wouldn't play the part. In fact, we wanted Jason Ritter to play it, who was Melanie's husband, but Jason was unavailable. And so, but we always thought like, it's a part that I could do. I knew like it wasn't like a huge stretch, and so yeah, you're right. I was pretty.
I feel like those scenes went by so fast. You know, like we just like banged those out really quickly.
That's true. But to your point, Nzinga, I did really rely on him completely rely on him for those scenes, even though I was comfortable. It's still hard to see if the thing is working when you're present to another actor. It's hard to kind of get a sense of the whole thing.
Well, you did a phenomenal job.
Oh,
he was an endearing character.
Good.
Now let's talk about, this is it's kind of like a historical piece, right? It's a historical comedy piece. How much research went into preparing yourselves to direct this film, and also directing the actor, specifically Judy Greer, how to transform herself into this lovely Southern belle from the antebellum South?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a good question. We had her watch. We talked about Tennessee Williams and Streetcar. Of course, I think she watched that, and we read this book called "An American Woman's Home" by Harriet Beecher Stowe, and that we read it originally just to kind of get an idea of a woman's vernacular at the time, the colloquialisms of the day, and to try to write a little bit more specifically for that character. And we ended up using the book itself in the movie. We reference it it becomes kind of a plot point in the movie. And it also really revealed, because it was a very progressive book for its time. And I remember there was a passage that said something like, I think I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, a woman's place is no longer just in the kitchen. Now their oversight is of the utmost importance throughout the house, in just about every room, suggesting
it's that, they can go in other rooms now. Like, thanks.
And take care of the whole house. That for the time was like real progress. And so it helped us better understand just how much has changed and to
highlight the comedy of the differences in the characters, where Judy's character is like from this era where like it's progressive to say that a woman can go throughout the house, and then Melanie is like smoking pot and like hooking up with guys and is being, more of a modern person. So it highlighted how different those two characters were and like helped with the comedy.
For sure.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the fact that she was even like hesitant to laugh, I found that very fascinating.
Yeah, right? Well, they talk about that in those books. Yeah, there is a lot of that. Because there was remnants of like a Victorian era where it was a little bit. It was very buttoned up and
it was not unladylike.
Yes, and so there were a lot of like etiquette. There were a lot of rules, And Christian and I grew up next door to a very wonderful woman, an older lady who was single, and we would have her over to the house every once in a while for dinners. And so a lot of that, we were kind of inspired by her as a person. So a lot of that, straighten up now, and, elbows off the table. A lot of that old fashioned etiquette came from her, and the idea that a lady acts a certain way and presents herself a certain way.
And one night at dinner, she got up out of the blue from the dinner table and walked into the other room and started admiring a painting. When did you get this painting? I don't remember that. And it turns out she went into the other room because she had to fart. And that's what ladies do. It's proper if you're at a dinner table to get up from the table and go to the that made its way into our movie, that idea.
Yes, she had a lot of gas.
Yes. Drank a lot of beers.
And she was nervous.
Yeah.
She was nervous. That's so true. Okay, so you're directing, there's research that goes into it. There's also producing elements. So it seems like in this day and age, right, it's imperative for actors to really be a multi-hyphenate, right? How do you feel about that? Like, how did it feel to have some sense of control and ownership over your own project?
You are officially a multi-hyphenate.
I was a singular hyphenate.
You were a non-hyphenate.
That's right. No hyphen. Well, yeah. It feels it's daunting in the sense that there's just a lot of responsibility, a lot more responsibility. Actor, I did a job in Bulgaria a couple months ago, and it was so nice. It was the first big job I did after we did this movie, and it was so nice. The last couple of movies I've done, just to like show up and just act. It felt like a vacation. It was really a pleasant experience. But so obviously a lot more work, but I also a lot more fulfilling. I mean, there's something truly satisfying about it in a way that as much as I love acting, there's something about this that is, I don't know, uniquely satisfying and gratifying to see that final product. And I just love actors. So I love watching good acting, and of course I love being a part of it, but I also love the experience of watching. And so to get to see Judy Greer and Melanie Linsky every day, even when we were editing it, it was a pleasure to watch Louis Guzman and Ryan Phillippe, these actors that I've admired for a long time. It was fun to put it together, and it's fun to even talk about it, you know.
That's fantastic. And I know we've got to go soon, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk to, or just have a message. What is your message to actors now, especially, you know, during this time of COVID where people have not been working? What do you have to say to them?
You know, I don't know. Like I said, our mother was an actress growing up, and so we grew up with a working actor in the family, and we saw what a difference one commercial would make. You know, we would see a real difference in our family and our lifestyle with a single commercial. So
being an actor is such a unique experience, in that even if you're successful and you're quote unquote making it, you're still being rejected like 9 times out of 10. And that's if you're doing really well. So there's this, like, you need so much perseverance and like strength to hang in there. And I think now more than ever, with what's going on in the world, it's like that's even more true now, that like it's just hanging in there. And if I would say, like, if you love it enough, then you can't imagine yourself doing anything else.
Yeah.
So it's worth hanging in there, you know.
But yeah, and I would say, like, do theater, but like now, of course, that's not happening, and it's tough. I would say
make your own stuff. Yeah.
Make your own stuff. I mean, like that was sort of the impetus for this, was just like you said, to have a little bit more control. And we fell in love with the process of writing. I mean, I really started to enjoy writing, but I think, if I'm honest, like in the beginning, it was sort of a means to an end. It was to have a little bit more control. But I think it also, I think you're right. I think you have to keep hustling. A friend of mine told me a story about Sylvester Stallone running it, like meeting him somewhere, and he was like going on about this movie he's trying to produce, and it was Rocky and Rambo. He was trying to resurrect those properties, and it struck my friend that he was so, like, still hustling, you know. He's like, God, I don't know if he was 60 at the time, maybe, and he's Sylvester Stallone. So you think a guy like that, oh, he can just like rest on his laurels and coast, and like, but a guy like that is still, and it's kind of how he got started. You know, he was like a real hustler, and I think it's kind of inspiring to hear stories like that he's maintained that hunger. That hunger, like, yeah. But it's I love actors. I really am wishing people all the best out there.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a fun conversation. Congratulations again on your directorial debut. I wish you the most success with this and all your other projects to come. And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you for sharing this experiences, the process, and your craft with your fellow supporters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is really lovely.
For letting us talk about our movie, and I hope people like it.
Yeah. Thanks for the kind words.
Everybody has to watch it because I loved it.
We demand you watch it. September 17th.